and welcome to OEN Engage. Thank you for joining us for this session, Pub101 for Authors, Building Shared Understanding. My name is Karen Lauritsen. I'm Senior Director with the Open Education Network. I have a few housekeeping items. We kicked off the week with our land acknowledgement and community norms. You can find those at the links in the chat. You can also find them at z.umn.edu/OEN land acknowledgement, and also at z.umn.edu/OEN community norms. This session is being recorded. If you have any questions, we will be watching chat, and there will be opportunities to unmute as well during our 45 minutes here together. So joining me for this session is Amanda Larson, ARI Program Manager at The Ohio State University, and Micah Gjeltema, Open Education and Affordable Content Librarian at the University of Minnesota. We are also joined by members of the Pub101 committee. This group of people is actively working this summer on adapting the Pub101 curriculum and experience for an author audience. As you may already know, we've offered Pub101 to librarians and other people who support authors in writing an open textbook, but now we're adapting the curriculum and experience for authors themselves. So thank you very much to this group for their hard work on that. So for those of you who may be new, Pub101 is an informal, synchronous orientation to open textbook publishing that complements our openly available curriculum. And a link to that curriculum will be dropped in the chat now. The goal really is to get people together to share their experience, to help people who may be new at this anticipate some common issues. So I know there are people here who have participated in Pub101, and please share with us something you remember, or perhaps something you have implemented locally from what you learned at Pub101. And if you have not yet participated in Pub101, what is something that you think a publishing orientation should include? So maybe a question you have or something you've struggled with, please let us know in the chat. And then I'll ask my colleagues to keep an eye on that with me. Most common mistakes. We all have mistakes to share. Peer review procedures, possibilities for folks who are pursuing tenure and promotion and need to meet that standard. MOUs, definite game changer, clarifying who does what in a memorandum of understanding really helps with roles. Amanda says the importance of structure. So Amanda's referring to, what makes a textbook a textbook? There are certain elements that recur throughout the chapters that make it accessible. And we can share links to that content in the Pub101 curriculum as well, Amy. Will said, I remember the need to have a vision for a publishing program and then work on the various projects. Yes. Thank you all. Feel free to keep them coming. Pub101 is, if I may say so, as someone who has gathered the group together over the last several years, it's really a nice opportunity to just get together and talk informally about publishing, which can be a little intimidating and can be a little scary. And for those of you who have worked on projects, it can be kind of a highly charged adventure sometimes. So it's nice to find a group of people you can lean on in that environment. So our agenda for our time together today, I'm going to briefly talk about why we're adapting Pub101 for an author audience, and then I'll hand things over to Micah, who will review the revised curriculum outline that we have created. And then Amanda Larson will gather your input, and we'll have time for Q&A. So our goal in adapting Pub101 for authors is to provide a foundation, both for authors and for librarians who may be short on time, short on energy, and would appreciate an orientation experience to send their authors to. So let's say, for example, you're launching a publishing program, you want just kind of to lay the foundation, a baseline of understanding. What is an open license? What should I anticipate when writing an open textbook? How do I get started? Some general things that are common almost across any situation. And then we would step back and say, check with your local program, your local librarian, if you have one, for the specifics of what they're looking for and how they can support you. That leads me to the second point. We also want to be able to provide some support and assistance to authors at institutions that may not have librarian support, but they still want to create an open textbook for their students. We think it's really important that anyone who wants to publish can publish and create that type of support and structure and learning material for their students. And at the end of the day, all of these efforts, we hope, will contribute to the creation of more open textbooks to reach more students. So that, in a snapshot, is why we're doing what we're doing. If you think that you may be interested in sitting in on Pub 101 for authors, your faculty or instructors may be interested, here is a link, z.umn.edu/pub101 authors. This is just a brief Google form. I will collect your names and addresses. And then once we have the curriculum ready, and once we are ready to host the synchronous sessions, I will email you and let you know further details. So please feel free to add your information here or to share this list with your faculty as it comes up. Also look for emails from me and other members of the Pub 101 committee in the coming months that will talk about the opportunity to sign up and where we are in the process. So with that, I will hand things over to Micah.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat here. This is to our current curriculum outline draft for our Pub 101 for faculty, for authors. As you can maybe get a sense of, a lot of Pub 101 is very community-based, community-organized. We really love the community feedback. So, this is a session here with some session leaders, but we do want to make clear this is really kind of us looking for feedback, us looking for engagement, us looking for your ideas. Us looking for your corrections in some cases, perhaps, if you feel like we have missed a blind spot or something like that, or if there is an opportunity you think sort of within the formulation of our structures to explore something that you find is a real sticking point, either with yourself, your colleagues, or your authors that you work with. So I'm not going to share the curriculum. I'm going to hope that you'll join me in that document so that you can sort of look ahead if you'd like to, look behind if you'd like to. This is really an area where you can take your time, I think. We'll be walking through it for the next few minutes, of course, and I hope that you will feel free to make comments in there. Things that we're looking for are, gaps in the outline, anything that you feel like is a really relevant topic that you see here that you might think is sort of underemphasized, or anything that you think we're missing completely, some things that you feel like are maybe non-obvious lessons that you've learned in your experience, or real questions that you have that you assume that your authors may have as well. Your suggestions for links to related resources. I think, as information workers, as kind of, education support workers, we all have perhaps a little bookmarks bar of lots of little links that we've collected over time about how to express an idea, or how to, offer a, consultation tool, or offer something that people can work with for their own uses, or even just sort of informational materials. If you have those sorts of go-to items, go-to resources, we would love to evaluate them as well to see if they could be useful in this outline, if they could be useful to, our conception of sort of a orientation starter pack for authors who are interested in this work. As Karen already mentioned, we'd also love the names of potential faculty presenters. So as you look through this outline, you'll see different topics, of course. Maybe that jogs your memory about somebody that you've worked with, somebody that you've seen perhaps profiled at your institution. That could be a really good resource for speaking to other, author peers about these topics. So those are kind of the three sort of ideas to sort of prime you with as we walk through this. But again, this document is going to be open. If you have ideas after the session, great. Please feel free to pop back in and leave some feedback. And Amanda will be speaking in sort of, I think, more focused terms about questions about this process in a little bit. That's probably a great time as well to think, oh, yes, I would love to see more of that. Or like, oh, I have, worked on a workshop that touched on that before. Those would all be great times to, again, come back and share your insights, share your resources, and share your recommendations. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Unit 1. We have 4 units here. The way I sort of think of them as Unit 1 is sort of the why and how of open. Unit 2 is managing the people in a project. Unit 3 is the content. And Unit 4 is sort of, AI and difficult questions that I think we can anticipate. So again, for that Unit 1, you can see that we have, why use open textbooks? Hopefully being able to offer some justification in a really concrete way. I've seen a few questions already, of course, about tenure and promotion. Open licenses overview, again, explaining kind of how these things can take shape, how they can be supported, what people can sort of imagine the scope of these resources to be. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are still using those words here. Just being able to, again, give those foundational elements, I think, for how people should consider these projects and how they might work for individuals. So again, if you have any kind of ideas here, we'd love to see them in the chat. We can kind of add them to our own notes, or else feel free to add comments within the document itself.
Micah, I had a request to share the screen, so I'll just go ahead and share it while you talk through things.
Great, absolutely. And if anyone is having difficulty kind of accessing the document or leaving notes, please let us know and we can open that up further. If you've attended Pub 101 in the past, for librarians and support, perhaps you have already experienced some of these elements. If you have feedback there of things that you think worked really well or things that you wish you'd seen, we're open to that as well. So again, feel free to put things in the document or in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and kind of move along. But again, this is not kind of locked to this moment, certainly not locked to this session. I do encourage you to maybe even leave this tab open if you're interested and kind of come back to this in the future and add just different elements that you would like to see in these elements. So if we move on to Unit 2, you can see this is where we really get into sort of the people elements of these projects, which I think over the last years of kind of attending things has really been a really growing emphasis on these elements. I think we all kind of understand, open licensing, perhaps some of the reasoning, some of the justification for open projects and encouraging this sort of activity. But I think just a real great kind of acknowledgement of the human sort of experience in these elements is really helpful as well, especially when working with, I think, authors who may be tentative, who may be starting just curious without being committed. I think these are really great things to kind of think about as well. So yeah, we want to kind of talk about human roles in publishing, things like identifying collaborators and sort of managing that process in some cases. It's more complicated than it sort of seems from the beginning at times. And again, looking for ways that, librarians and information professionals can help. Project management is going to be a big element too. That's something, of course, we maybe negotiate, project by project, depending on the personalities involved. A lot of this is kind of coming down to the personalities involved in any given project. Working with freelancers and communicating with collaborators. Again, just being able to give individuals not only resources, perhaps structure, but sometimes just the acknowledgement that these are going to be really important parts of their project, things that they need to consider if they're interested, and perhaps in some cases options for their involvement in projects where maybe they see themselves as a collaborator or something like that, and maybe this connects an existing project or grows the scope or expands a kind of traditional project into an open project. We really want to acknowledge sort of all of those elements of experience and see how they can kind of work for us and work for us all as we try to encourage this activity. A big thing that we've talked about, I think, in the past couple of sessions of Pub 101 is author agreements, MOUs, and waivers. These are areas where I think people get a little bit nervous. I get nervous sometimes, right? What's the best way to do these things? Sometimes it's a lot of pressure to have everything kind of neatly buttoned, from the very start of a project, but projects sometimes develop in unconventional ways, right? So this is a great time too if you have links to materials, if your institution has developed something that you'd love to share. These are places that we would really love to see your ideas and get a sense of what people are using and what people find really helpful. Kind of to that point, also there's kind of timelines and scheduling. Just being able to kind of hear people's experience is really helpful for us. We want to be able to, again, acknowledge the range of project development experiences people have. We want to be able to really prepare authors for, anything that might come their way, but also give them the tools to really kind of recognize the scope of the project that they have in mind in order to accomplish that and get it to a good start. So again, feel free to kind of pop things into the comments as we go. Go ahead and move on to Unit 3 here. Unit 3 is sort of the content, the how, the kind of nuts and bolts, the where the project becomes concrete. So, different elements of just sort of kind of textbook orientation, right? Taking a step back and thinking about what something wants to look like, what the goal of a project is. Oftentimes, authors might come to you saying like, I've got all these notes, I've got all this expertise in teaching, I would love to turn it into a book. In my experience, sometimes the A to B is a little bit oversimplified. Sometimes there are quite a lot of letters in between A and B, even when they think they're just kind of adapting notes into a document that works as a textbook. So here we want to cover things like textbook parts, textbook structure, how to conceive of these projects. Of course, understanding things like universal design is very helpful in these areas as well. Again, if you have resources, love to see links. You can see, some individuals I can see are already adding things there. We want to talk about being able to remix open content. That's often a really area of I find, kind of trepidation among authors as well. We make such a great case in all of our workshops and in our consultations, I know, to sell them on this idea. But then when it comes to the moment, sometimes even just being able to do attributions can be a real sticking point. Sometimes people really see it as sort of an APA thing, where if they put the comma in the wrong place, that they'll get, um, sent to copyright jail or something like that, right? So being able to, I think, go over these things is really helpful for, again, thinking about the content and the structure, which of course leads to things like style guides. These are all sort of individual elements, but yeah, being able to kind of put together more comprehensive lists, being able to define that perhaps for your institution as you prepare to speak to your authors, being able to kind of point authors to perhaps conventions within their field of different elements of how these projects are accomplished. Those are all really useful things. Um, Going on to, of course, peer review. Seen quite a few questions kind of and comments in the chat about that already. That's something I am really interested in and curious about to kind of hear from other people. Again, seeing other people's resources would be really great as well. And again, as I'm talking, if you see, different elements where you're just like, oh, there's a really important concept that should be fit in between this and that. This is kind of what we're looking for today. So please do consider that. We are looking for your feedback. We would like it to be, quite blunt if you need to be to see what you think that we're missing in these elements. So hopefully that, gets us through, a lot of the elements that authors will have sort of in an orientation, being able to see the why, the who and the how. And then with Unit 4, we kind of go into some of those big questions and the things that might be a little spooky for all of us and how we think about things, things that we're still, I think, all negotiating, I think, within perhaps ourselves and within our institutions and fields. And this is, of course, really centering on AI. So this is a newer element that we're adding to, Pub 101, and then also kind of expanding this into Pub 101 with authors. So yeah, we have, here an overview of AI and OER, how those things interact, what the current state of things might be, how they might change perhaps, how my authors use AI to create OER. I think I certainly run into this kind of distinction between what is allowed and what is recommended. I think there's a lot of room to have discussions there. And yeah, very curious to see if you have particular resources that you link to, if your institutions have particular guidance. Those things are really useful for us as we consider how to present these ideas to authors who might be coming from, a range of different institutions. And then, of course, yes, again, kind of considerations for using AI. Perhaps it's not just like, oh, my faculty wants to make a bunch of like weird looking pictures and it makes me feel weird to publish those. Or it may be, oh, they're using AI to just rephrase, content. And, maybe those make you feel strange. But I think, all of the other elements that we've talked about here as well, establishing timelines and scheduling, how can those things be aided by these tools as well? So really, we are not taking sort of a editorial stance on these things. I think we want to just be able to kind of acknowledge the breadth and kind of depth of the ways that people are using these tools. and the ways in which we can interact and perhaps negotiate with authors who are looking to accomplish these projects with our help, and how they feel is the best and most productive way for them to get something completed and get something used. So yeah, that kind of completes our outline here. Again, I hope that you will keep this tab open. I think I'm going to pass this off to Amanda briefly here, and we'll go over some, really kind of focused elements as well. If any of that jogs your memory about something that you think should be more emphasized or more included, or if you just have elements that you're just like, oh, this really works for me when I talk about that, we would love your feedback. So do feel free to add comments and add things in the chat, and we can kind of collect those as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Amanda.
Thanks so much for covering that Google Doc. All right, let me share my screen and we will hop over to a Padlet activity. All right, awesome. So we have done this Padlet activity a couple of times now. Karen and I did it at the Library Publishing Forum in a different Padlet, and then we adapted it for a tea time that we had on January 6th of this year. And so I would like to reuse this one so that we can have you add hearts to ideas that you think are really cool and you would like to see included or that you agree with. So the instructions are to create a post, you can click this plus button. I'm going to do it and it's going to come up and it's going to say, here's a subject. So you can add a subject line to it and then you can write some text. You can also drop in resources if you'd like. There's a file upload, there are links, the images, and then you can pick what question you would like it to answer here. That's one way that you can do this. And then the next way that you can do that is you can come into the section and you can take a look at the ones that are here. And if you agree with an idea, you can click the little heart idea here. So we have linked here the current curriculum. So this is the library facing for support staff version of the curriculum that we have been giving for many years now. So if you'd like to take a look at it as you consider these things, it's available. But the first question we want to ask is, what do you want faculty to know before beginning an open textbook project? So mine is always that we're in this together. Like we're going to work on this together. We're going to figure it out. And we're going to scope a project that is manageable in the time that they have to create the project. And I'm going to scroll past some of these, but feel free to add to them. And then if you want to add to this question, it will be here. I gotta scroll past all of 7 months ago. Okay. And so these are what folks have added previously. And another one that I super agree with is that accessibility is from day one. We're not doing post-publishing fixes on accessibility. We're going to be accessibility first. Let's see what y'all have to say. Timeline, deliverables, expectations. And I think that's great. And it's also good to capture that in a memorandum of understanding up front. How can this help my tenure and promotion? So what's in it for them? And will someone grab Sherry's comment so that we don't lose it? Thanks, Karen. There are a lot of tons of resources available to help them get started. Absolutely. And this is going to be one of them. They'll have the curriculum to help them get started. All right, I'm going to move ahead and we're going to talk now a bit about your practice. So if you are managing a publishing program or you will be managing a publishing program, or you're doing this off the side of your desk and just occasionally help people do some publishing, what advice and guidance do you often give faculty authors? I often tell them to start small because scaffolding is really important. I will not get on my scaffolding soapbox right now, but just know that like it's important to start small and build with momentum towards a finished goal. We have people who said that they should see what's already out there, that they don't have to start from scratch. Again, let's remix an OER. Things exist and are openly licensed. There are accessibility must-dos. I don't negotiate on those, and nor should this person. Let me scroll to the end now. Oh, this was a good one to highlight, though. Complete does not equal finish. We're working on a 1.0 version. Let's get the structure and content into something that can serve instruction and then improve it so that OER is an iterative process. All right, we have use what you already have. So faculty are required to provide cultural content with subject. That's awesome. That they're there to support them through the whole process from start to finish. That's good too. I'm gonna wait just another 30 seconds or so to see if any more come in for this section. Also, this Padlet's not going anywhere. So if you're like me and you need to process these questions and then come back to it, that is also very well appreciated that you would come back and give us your feedback. All right, let's move ahead. So what hurdles or stumbling blocks do you consistently encounter with authors and textbook production in your programs? So my example is I often run into faculty authors who want to do too much right away. So for example, they want to author a textbook. They want to create interactives. They want to teach course material at the same time that they're writing it. I have dealt with all of those examples across 2 different grant programs, and it's like, you need to slow down. Like, we don't have to do all of it right now. I try to talk them through like what can versioning look like. So we're going to write the content and then maybe we'll add H5P elements in the second version. And sometimes it's a real struggle to get them on board with that. So I'm going to scroll through. Citation versus attribution. I sometimes encounter faculty who are confused by open licenses, thinking they are unable to cite or reference closed material when writing in OER. I have run into that as well. That is a great one to pull out. Lacking infrastructure to support, feeling overwhelmed and getting started, and convincing faculty that it's worth it. Absolutely. Knowing that it will take more time than they think, and it will take more time than you think, probably as well. And then you have to think about, for those of us who are in these support roles, we have to think about like, how do we structure the grant dollars around how long it actually takes people to support and finish those projects. So also thinking about that. Crunch timelines, not scheduling enough time for sections of workflow, post-peer review revisions, for example. Yeah. And you can incorporate timelines into your MOU, but they're often one of the things that like quickly fluctuates as the people are starting to build out their stuff. Okay, so moving on to the next question. If you have previous faculty share their experiences with new faculty in your program, what kind of things do they share? So if you have people come and talk to your next group of grantees or publishing folks, what do they share? In my experience, they often share how much their students like their textbook. And then other folks have said that some have shared at conferences. They highlight student contributions, what institutions have adopted it. That's harder knowledge to get, but if they have it, good for them. Data downloads, views, geographic locations. So if you're working in Pressbooks, there is a really great data dashboard where you can find all of this information. That's something I regularly share with our authors in our program. Oh, it jumped to the top. Let's scroll back down. Iterative process, new additions. We got another one up top. Citation versus curation. Some faculty don't grasp that authoring an OER goes beyond copying over an existing OER and fluffing the pillows. I like that phrase. Of course, they'll pull from existing resources, but their role should be entail evaluating, revising, writing for currency, flow, applicability, and more. Okay. So, does this sound cool? Would you invite your faculty to attend? Is this something that you could use as an additional support to the stuff that you already do? If you think the answer is yes, please go ahead and click that little heart. I can't wait to have my faculty attend Pub 101 for authors. If this doesn't fit into your publishing model, go ahead and click the heart on the no. If it's something else, you can go ahead and tell us about it. What do you think? I think we just got one up on this previous one. Sharing experience, it would be good for us to showcase OER production across subject areas so others can see what's possible. Yeah, that's always cool if you can get people to look across disciplines. Almost there. Yes, it would take some pressure off of me and they would have tools to refer to. Absolutely. And that's what we want it to exist as, is to relieve some of the burden, particularly for programs that are underfunded by their institutions. Um, and I think this is our last question. Is how would you use the Pub 101 faculty curriculum? So I would send it to the faculty curriculum as part of our onboarding. So I would expect them to see that probably before we had like a kickoff meeting, or it could be before they applied for a grant so that they had a good idea of what they were being expected to do. And then some other folks said that they would refer faculty specifically to sections that were relevant to their needs. Someone's would adapt it, which would be great. And then someone else was going to add it as a resource to their Pressbook site. So how would you use it? And it's okay if you don't have an answer to that right now. Add as a resource and promote to our faculty to attend. Ooh, micro-credential. We're getting into this at my institution. I think this would be a great fit. That could be really cool. You could create like little custom badges for your participants who had completed it. Make them take a quiz and then give them a badge. All right, and last but not least, we are providing you a second chance to nominate a faculty who you think would make a good Pub 101 presenter. Feel free to name drop below. If you have somebody who you think would be excellent at covering one of these topics, has experience, did really well at one of these things, has like haggardly stories to tell of being in the trenches of OER textbook creation, we'll take it all. So for example, I nominate Liza Long, and I'm hoping to reach out to her about possibly giving our session on AI, maybe. That was my nomination, but other folks have nominated some folks. And so this is just another place where you can go ahead and submit those nominations of people you think would be great participants who could present on something that they did that was cool. And we are still building that list of potential presenters, and then we'll start reaching out to them in the near future. Yes, other roles too. So if you know somebody who is like a whiz at explaining Creative Commons licenses and copyright, that could be someone. Or it could be somebody who knows about like instructional design of building out a textbook. That would also be wonderful. We're more than happy. We have not made any decisions about what those sessions are going to look like as far as presenters go. And then we'll have conversations with those presenters in order to develop them. So please feel free to either add those names into this Padlet or into the Google Doc. We would be happy to have, we'd like to grow our list through the community. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Karen. But thank you so much for your participation, and we really appreciate all the feedback that you've provided us. It's going to help make Pub101 for faculty, for authors, I get used to saying for authors, really stellar.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks everyone for your comments. The committee is reviewing everything and incorporating it into the curriculum as we speak. So Francis asked, did you say faculty receive a certificate of completion for going through Pub 101? I'm thinking about asking our VP to add this to compensated, incentivized faculty PD options. Thank you for thinking about that. We have not discussed any kind of certificate. We don't do it for regular Pub 101 because we keep it as an informal drop-in as you're able type of vibe. But if this is something that you think would really support the program and your efforts, we can definitely explore it more. So thank you for that suggestion, and I invite anyone else to chime in if you think that this would be really helpful. And this is, we have 5 or 6 more minutes. If you have any questions, comments, we have time for them. So I will pause and see if there's anything you would like to ask us. Okay, as you think of your possible questions, I will thank you on behalf of Amanda and Micah for joining us and offering your feedback. I also want to thank Amanda and Micah for leading us through these activities. We encourage you to continue chatting. If you have questions after this session, please feel free to post them to the Google group. We're very happy to answer them. We will also have a debrief session at the end of today when you can bring your questions about anything publishing related. That's 3 to 3:30 Central Time. But before then, in about an hour, you have the opportunity to meet our Manifold community and learn more about that resource available to you, which is a publishing platform and infrastructure. As you know, this session was recorded. We'll be sharing it with you via email and post it to the Community Hub along with the slides and the transcripts. And if you haven't noticed, Amanda does have a puppy with her. So if you need a little bit of puppy time today, that is also available as a special bonus in this session. Pretty cute. Thanks again, everyone. And oh, I see actually there's some, let me check the chat. I apologize for messing this up front. What is the tentative launch date for this offering? Melissa, we are working hard to have this ready for spring 2026. That would be for the live synchronous sessions that complement the curriculum. So thanks, Amanda, for answering that in the chat as well. I feel like my hands are tied. I can't end the session because there's a puppy here. What do I do? But thanks again, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care.
I can put him down.